The Enigma of Quantum Consciousness, an infinite journey into the unknown. In a small village nestled in the Pyrenees Mountains, there lived a man named Javier, a solitary philosopher who dedicated his life to unraveling the deepest mysteries of existence. His cabin, built from ancient stone and weathered wood, stood at the edge of a cliff, overlooking a vast horizon, an ocean of clouds that faded into infinity. Javier spent his days surrounded by dusty books and manuscripts that contained the thoughts of the greatest thinkers in history, from the ancient Greeks to modern physicists. Despite all his erudition, there was one question that endlessly troubled his mind: the nature of consciousness. What was consciousness, really? How did it relate to the universe? Could it be defined or fully understood? Or was it an unfathomable mystery destined to remain beyond human reach? These questions tormented him day and night, driving him to seek answers beyond the conventional limits of knowledge. One day, while perusing an old book of interviews with scientists and philosophers, Javier came across a name he had heard several times: Jacobo Grinberg. Grinberg, a Mexican psychologist and neurophysiologist, had devoted his life to the study of consciousness from a unique and profoundly original perspective. In an interview with a Spanish channel, Jacobo had been asked to define consciousness, and his response left Javier deeply moved. Jacobo had said that consciousness could not be defined. To try and conceptualize it, he said, was to confine its vastness within the narrow limits of human thought. Defining consciousness meant limiting it, reducing it to a set of terms and concepts that could never capture its true essence. This statement resonated deeply with Javier, who felt that, in those words, there was a truth that went beyond logic and reason. Jacobo Grinberg had devoted much of his work to exploring the quantum field, a concept that, according to him, was intrinsically linked to consciousness. Quantum physics, with its description of the universe as a web of infinite possibilities that collapse into an observable reality only when measured or perceived, provided a powerful metaphor for understanding consciousness. According to Jacobo, consciousness and the quantum field were not separate entities, but two aspects of the same fundamental reality. Javier immersed himself in Grinberg's writings, absorbing every word, every idea, as if they were pieces of a cosmic puzzle. In his humble opinion, he began to see consciousness as a sort of internal quantum field, a network of possibilities that, when unobserved, existed in a state of superposition. In other words, in a state of infinite potentialities. However, when observed, either by an external observer or by consciousness itself in self-observation, these possibilities collapsed into a concrete, defined reality. This collapse, Javier thought, was not merely a passive action. It was, in effect, the creation of reality itself. Consciousness, in observing, did not merely perceive a pre-existing reality, but brought it into existence. In other words, reality did not exist independently of consciousness. It was, rather, a product of it. This thought left Javier in a state of perpetual awe, as if he had glimpsed a truth so deep and fundamental that his mind could barely grasp it. From that moment on, Javier began to see the world with new eyes. Every sunrise, every sunset, every breeze that brushed his skin was a manifestation of that quantum consciousness that he and the universe shared. He began to wonder if, by changing the way he observed the world, he could change reality itself. Could he, for instance, influence the events of his life simply by altering his state of consciousness? Could he somehow tune into the quantum field and access other realities, other dimensions of existence. Over time, Javier began experimenting with meditative practices and visualization techniques, trying to expand his consciousness beyond the limits of his individual mind. During these meditations, he sometimes felt himself fading away, as if his personal identity dissolved into an infinite ocean of possibilities. In those moments, he perceived the universe as a vast field of energy, a vibrant network of interwoven waves and particles that responded to his mere intention. One night, while meditating under the starry sky, Javier had an experience that would change his life forever. In a state of deep relaxation, he felt his consciousness detach from his body and expand into the cosmos. He traveled through galaxies and constellations, observing how stars were born and died, how planets spun in their orbits, all within a perfect and mysterious harmony. Suddenly, he found himself in a completely different place, a vast field of pure, radiant light. There, he felt the presence of other consciousnesses, entities of pure energy that had no form or name but radiated profound, ancient knowledge. One of these entities approached him, communicating not with words but with a direct transmission of thought. "What you call reality," the entity said, "is just one of the infinite manifestations of the quantum field. Consciousness is the key that unlocks these manifestations. You are both the observer and the creator. Reality is a reflection of your consciousness." Javier awoke from his meditation with tears in his eyes. He had understood, on a level beyond words, that consciousness and the quantum field were indeed one and the same, that his life, his reality, was a projection of his own consciousness, a dance of energy that responded to his thoughts, emotions, and intentions, and that by changing his consciousness, he could change his world. From that day on, Javier lived with a deep reverence for life and the universe. He knew that every thought, every perception, was an act of creation, and that human consciousness had a far greater power than he had ever imagined. He continued to study, meditate, and explore, but no longer from a perspective of seeking. Now he did so from an inner understanding that he himself was part of the great mystery he was trying to unravel. And so Javier became a master of consciousness, sharing his wisdom with those who sought to understand the mysteries of the universe. He taught that reality was not something fixed or immutable, but a dynamic, ever-evolving process shaped by the consciousness of each being. In his words resonated the teachings of Jacobo Grinberg, but also his own direct experience, a fusion of science, spirituality, and the mysterious interconnectedness of all things. In the tranquility of his cabin, as he contemplated the infinite horizon, Javier understood that the true nature of consciousness could never be captured in words or concepts. But he also realized that this didn't matter. What mattered was the direct experience, the living of being conscious, the wonder of existing in a universe so vast and mysterious that it would never cease to surprise and astonish those who dared to explore it. And so, in that small village in the mountains, Javier lived out the rest of his days, not as a seeker of answers, but as an explorer of the mystery, a conscious being navigating the infinite ocean of possibilities that is reality.